Putin isn't bluffing anymore. He just said it. All of Ukraine belongs to Russia, not just Crimea, not just the Donbas, every inch of it, and maybe even more. While the world was watching NATO for answers, Putin made a chilling declaration that sent shockwaves across Europe. Now, Ukrainian skies are raining with missiles. Europe is scrambling to fill the gaps left by the US, and Trump? He's staying quiet. Except for one cryptic promise that might change everything. But this isn't just about Ukraine anymore. If Putin gets what he wants, the war won't end there. He didn't hint at it. He didn't dance around it. He said it straight. All of Ukraine is ours. Standing on stage at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, Vladimir Putin dropped the mask completely. To him, there's no border, no sovereignty, no independence, just a former Soviet state waiting to be pulled back into the empire. He called Ukrainians and Russians one nation, claiming it's Russia's historical right to take the land. And then, with a cold smirk, he quoted an old Russian saying, "Wherever a Russian soldier steps, it is ours." The message was unmistakable. This wasn't about defending Russian-speaking regions anymore. This was about conquest, about rebuilding the Russian Empire. Ukraine's response? Swift and furious. President Zelensky posted, yes, he wants all of Ukraine, but he also wants Belarus, the Baltics, Moldova, the Caucasus, and even Kazakhstan. Putin's vision doesn't end at Kiev. According to leaked German intelligence, Russia is actively preparing for a direct confrontation with NATO by the end of this decade, and that changes everything. Just days after Putin's declaration, he backed it with firepower. Russia launched the single largest aerial attack since the full-scale invasion began, 537 drones and missiles in one night. That's not war. That's a message. Cities across Ukraine were lit up with explosions. Kyiv, Odessa, Lviv, Zaporizhzhia, Mykolaiv, civilian buildings shattered, rescue workers buried, entire neighborhoods left smoldering in the dark. One strike in Kyiv tore through a residential building from top to basement, killing 23 people in seconds. Another hit in the Dnipropetrovsk region killed 20 and wounded nearly 300. These weren't military targets. These were apartment blocks, schools, emergency shelters. And to make it worse, many of the ballistic missiles came from North Korea. Even Ukraine's new F-16s weren't enough to stop the wave. One pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Maxim Ustimenko, shot down 7 Russian targets that night. On the 8th, his plane was hit. He steered it away from a civilian area, but couldn't eject in time. His death became a symbol of Ukraine's impossible fight, outgunned, outnumbered, and still standing. But as Ukraine bleeds in the skies, the world watches, some with action, others with silence. As missiles rained down, Europe finally broke its hesitation. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced a staggering $35 billion in European and Canadian military aid already pledged this year. And we're not even halfway through. Some estimates put the number closer to $40 billion. It's a desperate push to cover what's missing: U.S. support. Since his return to office, President Trump has made no firm pledge of military assistance to Ukraine. No aid packages, no shipments, nothing concrete. Just one vague promise. We're going to see if we can make some available. He was talking about Patriot interceptors, something Ukraine has been begging for. Zelensky even offered to buy them. But Trump's response? They're hard to get, he said, adding that the U.S. needed them too, and was already sending them to Israel. When it comes to Ukraine, America's role has shifted from leader to spectator. And in Trump's words, it's no longer a priority, at least not like it used to be. Sure, the U.S. approved a small weapons sale, some F-16 aircraft parts, but it was a drop in the ocean compared to what Ukraine needs. And with Russia ramping up its assault, Trump's reluctance is more than just strategy, it's a signal, one that Russia and its allies are watching very closely. While the West debates aid packages, Russia is planning something far bigger. A leaked German military strategy paper, 18 months in the making, delivered a chilling assessment. Moscow is actively preparing for a full-scale war with NATO by the end of this decade. This isn't guesswork. The report outlines how Russia is reshaping its defense industry and military leadership specifically for one goal: confronting the West head-on. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz didn't sugarcoat it. We ignored the warnings of our Baltic neighbors for too long, he admitted. Now Germany is scrambling to catch up. In a historic shift, Germany and its NATO allies agreed to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. That's not just a number, it's a political earthquake. For decades, Germany resisted military expansion. Now it's leading the charge. Out of that 5%, 1.5% will be used for non-combat readiness, like emergency infrastructure, cyber defense, and civil resilience. But the rest? Tanks, missiles, and boots on the ground. And here's the kicker. This dramatic turn isn't just about fear. It's also a major win for Trump, who has long demanded European nations stop freeloading off U.S. defense. But even Trump, a man who once called Putin smart, seemed shaken. When asked about the Russian leader during the NATO summit, he paused. "I think he's been misguided," he finally said. A rare moment of doubt, but it came too late. Just as Europe appeared to be uniting, two countries stepped out of line: Slovakia and Hungary. While NATO scrambled to boost defense and send aid to Ukraine, Slovakia quietly slammed on the brakes. It vetoed the EU's attempt to open new membership talks with Ukraine and blocked a sweeping 18th sanctions package that would have cut the EU off from Russian oil and gas. Their excuse? Geography. Both countries are landlocked and heavily dependent on Russian energy. But critics aren't buying it, especially Ukrainian President Zelensky, who flat out accused Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico of personally profiting from those energy imports. And then came the bombshell. Fico floated the idea of Slovakia leaving NATO altogether. On June 17th, he told the press, "In these nonsensical times of arms buildup, and neutrality would benefit Slovakia very much." That one statement sent alarm bells ringing across Europe. 3 days later, Austria's former defense minister warned that if Slovakia pulls out of NATO, Austria might be forced to join. "It would worsen our security dramatically," he said. Hungary hasn't been quiet either. Prime Minister Viktor Orban remains one of the few EU leaders to have visited Moscow during the war. Like Fico, he's resisted harsher sanctions and closer alignment with Ukraine. Together, these two leaders are turning into Russia's wedge inside Europe, disrupting unity at the worst possible time. And as Putin watches the cracks form, Ukraine braces for what comes next. While Russia fires missiles, Ukraine is building them. In a war where every second counts, Ukraine has quietly become a global leader in drone warfare. And now it's shifting into something even bigger. On June 18th and 20th, Ukrainian drones struck deep inside Russia, hitting the Shippanov Instrument Design Bureau, one of Moscow's key facilities for high-precision weapons. The strikes damaged warehouses, disrupted operations, and exposed a new reality. Ukraine isn't just defending anymore. It's hitting back. Moscow's mayor admitted that thousands of drones have targeted Russian soil in recent months. Ukraine's drone designs are evolving every 6 weeks, an insane pace that even Western militaries can't match. Now, international allies are getting on board. The UK just announced it will provide Ukraine's drone manufacturers with frontline battlefield data to improve British-made UAVs before shipping them back to the war zone. Norway is going a step further, partnering with Ukraine to manufacture surface drones directly inside the country. But Zelensky's vision doesn't stop with drones. He unveiled the Build with Ukraine initiative, an ambitious joint effort to share financing, technology, and production capacity with allies. The goal? Transform Ukraine into a military manufacturing powerhouse. He wants 0.25% of each partner nation's GDP to go toward Ukraine's domestic weapons industry next year. And at the center of it all is a missile with one mission: strike deep. It's called the Sapsan, a Ukrainian-made ballistic missile capable of delivering a 480-kil warhead up to 500 kilometers. That's halfway to Moscow. Asked if the missile could hit the Russian capital, one of Zelensky's top aides simply said, "Things are moving very well. I think we will be able to surprise our enemies on many occasions." And if they're right, Russia may soon be facing a different kind of war, one that comes from above. For all the high-tech warfare on the ground, it's still trench by trench. According to President Zelensky, there are now 695,000 Russian troops fighting inside Ukraine. And that's not including the 52,000 more trying to force open a new front near Sumy in northeast Ukraine. The daily rhythm of war? Brutal and exhausting. One day, Russian troops advanced 200 meters. The next, Ukraine pushes them back by 400. No real movement, just endless bloodshed over the same scorched soil. It's not just the front lines. Russia continues to weaponize fear from the sky. In Kyiv, a single Russian missile obliterated a residential building, killing 23 people in an instant. In Dnipro, a drone assault left 20 dead and nearly 300 injured. And it's not stopping. Over just 1 week, Russia launched 1,270 drones, 1,000 bombs, and 114 missiles. Civilian infrastructure is the main target: power stations, apartment buildings, hospitals. Zelensky called it what it is: psychological warfare. And when even F-16 pilots like Maxim Ustimenko fall from the skies defending their cities, the scale of sacrifice becomes impossible to ignore. But for all the pain and loss, Ukraine's spirit hasn't cracked. It's adapted, innovated, pushed forward. Still, one brutal fact remains: there is no end in sight. Despite the mounting devastation, peace talks remain stalled, if not broken. Russia insists that any ceasefire depends on Ukraine's allies stopping all military aid, a demand Ukraine and its supporters outright reject. Meanwhile, the White House quietly floated terms that would block Ukraine from ever joining NATO, a political red line for Kyiv. NATO itself claims Ukraine's path to membership is irreversible, but without a clear timeline or guarantees. It's a promise that feels increasingly hollow amid the bloodshed. The European Union offered hope of closer ties, but that too was dashed. Slovakia vetoed new EU membership talks and delayed critical sanctions against Russia, deepening divisions within the bloc. This fractured support sends a troubling message. Ukraine is caught in the middle of a geopolitical tug-of-war with its future hanging in the balance. And as Putin continues his relentless push, the war threatens to drag on indefinitely with no clear end in sight. Putin's ambitions are no longer a secret, they're an open threat. Europe's unity is fraying, and the United States' role is uncertain at best. Ukraine is fighting with every weapon it can build and every drone it can fly, but even its resilience may not be enough. The question now isn't just whether Ukraine will survive, it's what happens if it doesn't.
Let us know what you think down in the comments below. For more political news, celebrity scandals, and more, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Now Famous Feed. Your support means the world to us. Thank you.